The federal government is launching a more than $6 billion aid package for businesses impacted by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs, and it's relaxing some employment insurance rules to help workers. On Tuesday, Trump's threatened 25% tariff on most Canadian goods came into effect. And after 2 days, on Thursday, he paused tariffs on some Canadian goods until April 2nd. Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc said Canada will be keeping its counter tariffs in place on $30 billion worth of American goods, but that Canada would delay its second round of counter tariffs worth $125 billion until April 2nd. Minister LeBlanc is in Moncton. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thanks for having me on the program, Claire.
New Brunswick businesses also very worried about steel and aluminum tariffs poised to take effect next week. What are the chances that they can be forestalled?
So hoping very much they can be, and you're right, I've spoken to some businesses in our province in that sector, but not exclusively in that sector, that are understandably worried. As you said, there's a separate sort of national security tariff threat of 25% on steel and aluminum that would take effect next week. Theoretically, this would be on top of the 25% tariffs that were announced earlier this week that were, for many cases, again, given an exemption if they're compliant with the free trade agreement. So you can see the chaos here, the confusion. My conversations with Secretary Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary of the United States, spoke to him again this morning. He was working late last night. I got a text from him that came in the middle of the night. He tells me that he and I can quickly, we hope, resolve the concerns around steel and aluminum so that those sectors can be part of the broader conversation which will conclude in early April. So the President's decision to sort of suspend the application of the tariffs announced earlier this week is until April 2nd. As you said, I then deferred by 9 days the further $125 billion of counter tariffs. But all of this is sort of lining up for the first couple of days of April in a decision that the United States is making on global tariffs. So they're doing across the board examination of their trading relationship with all countries. My hope and my conversations with Secretary Lutnick are that we can resolve in the short term the issues that worry them around Canada. We have our own concerns as well. And then we can have we can get out from the April 2nd decision. And then eventually, as is prescribed in the agreement, there'll be a review of the Canada-Mexico-USA Free Trade Agreement. And that's where these conversations should properly take place.
Mm-hmm. The forestry sector is poised for a triple whammy of tariffs, countervailing duties that could destroy all business models for exporting anything into the U.S. 24,000 New Brunswickers work in that sector, and 80% of their products currently go to the U.S. What's your message to those people who are genuinely fearful?
So I totally understand that concern. There are, as you said, lumber producers, forestry sector companies, big and small in our province. It's in many cases the engine of the economy in New Brunswick, certainly in many regions of the province. Very conscious of that. This sector has already been unfairly targeted by the U.S. industry and the U.S. government in terms of tariffs that have been applied for a number of years, we think in a way that is completely unjustified. So again, that will be if the Americans talk to us about concerns around steel and aluminum, if they talk to us about concerns regarding defense spending, if they talk to us about concerns they have in terms of ensuring that we put the appropriate tariffs on Chinese imports into Canada so they don't use China as a backdoor to dump, that Canada doesn't become a backdoor for Chinese dumping into the U.S. market. All of those issues that the Americans say they want to talk to us about, and that I've had a number of conversations with the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, are also predicated on a list of things that Canada wants to resolve. And obviously, the most obvious one is the question of softwood lumber.